Hey everybody, welcome to V48. This video focuses, of course, on the digestive system. Let me come on the scene. How you doing? It may seem odd to throw in a human physiology system here. We've been looking at ATP and considering calories and touching on photosynthesis perhaps. Why throw in the digestive system here? This is how we and how animals are going to get access to the energy we need and the nutrients we need to power our physiology. So in this video, let's go ahead and consider this question. Let me give you some more reason here. Why do we eat? And again, it's a question I've raised that sounds kind of silly. We eat because we're hungry. I know that. But we're hungry because we need to take in food. Of course, we take in food because it gives us proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. We've already addressed these on a previous video. We need these because for carbohydrates and fats in particular, we get energy from them. We can also, of course, get energy from proteins, but not the preferred source. We also need to get vitamins and minerals, fiber, and water. So these are the main things that we have to get from our foods. And without these, we're not going to have the energy to power our metabolism. Let me just let you hit the bottom here. This just shows you the sources: meat and fish, bread and pasta, butters and oils, fruits and vegetables. And of course, if our diet is reasonably balanced, we're getting proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, water, and fiber in adequate levels. But the reason we eat is so that we are forced to take in food at adequate levels to supply these needs for our body. So in this video, we're going to look at just the very basic version of what happens to the food once we ingest it, and ultimately where the energy comes from that we need to power our reactions. So when we think about food processing, not the machine that's on your counter in your kitchen, but food processing means how do we deal with food? Food processing does involve four stages: the ingestion, the digestion, which is the mechanical and chemical breakdown of food. And we'll look at each of these in just a second. Absorption. Without absorption, this is all pointless. We have to absorb the nutrients and absorb the molecules that we need for energy. And elimination. We have to get rid of that which we cannot actually use. The question here, why chew your food before you swallow it? You're going to ingest your food. You're going to stick it in your mouth. But even chewing your food is mechanical digestion. It begins the breakdown process of food. So we're going to look at these processes very briefly, just so that you understand where they're occurring. Okay, so after ingestion, after we take the food in our mouth, digestion begins. Remember, it's both mechanical and chemical. So mechanical is going to be the physical breakdown of food, and that's the key word to focus on here, physical. So chewing on it's going to do it. When we mash it or push it through our system, that's going to be mechanical digestion. Chemical digestion refers to enzymes. That enzymes are going to be used to perform a process called hydrolysis. That word looks kind of fancy here, but it simply means that we're going to use water and enzymes to break down large molecules. Here's a large molecule into a small one. So the enzyme here is pepsin. It's going to break this bond right here by using water and enzymes, and that's going to be important. Really, what is digestion? Breaking big molecules into smaller ones. We do that mechanically, by squeezing or chewing our food, and we also are going to do it through chemical processes. So ingestion and digestion are the first two phases. Then we're going to see absorption and elimination. Absorption is, again, key. We're going to have to take up these molecules that we've now freed through chemical and mechanical digestion and make them available to other parts of the body. So we'll see the process just in real basic terms, but we're going to take up these molecules. You see here some of the blood vessels. We're going to take them up and we're going to distribute them around the body after they pass through the liver. Elimination, again, is going to be the passing of feces, that which we could not digest, that which we could not absorb, and get rid of it so that we can then take in more food. So the human body has this rather remarkable tube. We call this the alimentary canal, but that really is the actual passageway of food from the beginning of the mouth to the anus. So everything in between here is considered, a little hard to draw down in here, but all of this is considered the alimentary canal. Okay, the canal represents that which food passes through. And even though we think about it as the alimentary canal, like it's one long tube, and it is, it's got specialized specific areas where certain things happen. Certain things happen in the mouth that don't happen in the stomach, that don't happen in the small intestine. So this is just showing you here, and don't worry about the detail of this, but it's just showing you, if we look at the tube in a lot of detail, there's going to be glands and lymph nodes and muscles and nervous control of this that make this all work. But the canal itself is that tube, starts at the mouth, ends in the anus, that the food must pass through and travel through so that it can be processed, ultimately digested, absorbed, and eliminated. So starts in the mouth. In the oral cavity, we're going to have the first site of chemical breakdown. When we start to chew the food, that's mechanical, but you're also going to release from your salivary glands enzymes which start the chemical breakdown of food. You are then going to pass the food from the oral cavity, from the mouth. It's going to then move down, and here you see a little bit better view. This is showing you the esophagus. Okay, the esophagus is a muscular tube that's going to milk or push your food from your pharynx, from your throat, into your stomach. So it's a little hard to see here. They don't show it too well, but the trachea, the tube that's going to go to your lungs, is right here. Food has to be diverted so it goes to the proper location, so it goes into the esophagus. And when you swallow your food, you push food to the right tube most of the time. If you're talking while you're chewing your food, you may mess that part up. So once the food enters the stomach, and I'll show you the stomach here, once it enters the stomach, then there's going to be the release of lots of enzymes and gastric juice. Gastric juice is produced by the cells of the stomach, and you really won't see them here, but that makes up the very acidic juice that contains enzymes, including pepsin. And pepsin is going to be breaking down proteins. And let me back up for a second. In the mouth, the only thing that we broke down chemically in the mouth was one of the three major groups. We began to break down the carbohydrates. That breakdown started in the mouth. By the time we get to the stomach, the only thing that we're really going to be working on here in any great way is, you may know this, the proteins. So carbohydrate digestion is going to stop in the stomach and protein digestion begins. So again, in the mouth, we begin to break down carbohydrates. All that material passes into the stomach. Then we begin to break down the proteins. And then the material is going to leave the stomach and go into the small intestines right here. It's going to be squeezed or pushed along by a process called peristalsis. Peristalsis is sort of milking action that we see all throughout the alimentary canal. Once you swallow a bite of food, you're no longer in control of it. You no longer have to consciously move it because peristalsis, smooth muscles, are going to push it through the appropriate part of the canal. So food's entered the stomach, we begin to break it down, particularly the proteins, and then that material is going to pass from the stomach into the small intestines. Here's the beginning, here's the beginning of the small intestines right here, and ignore the part you see there. So it's going to travel through all through here, all through this is going to be the small intestines until it finally reaches right there. Okay, there's a little section right there, and there's a valve that the food passes through from the small intestines into the large intestines or colon. So when we talk about colon cancer, we're talking about, and let me switch colors just so that's a little easier to see. Colon cancer refers to the cancer of this part of the alimentary canal. So in the small intestine, in the region here, is where we're going to have a ton, I'll go back to my color here, we're going to have a ton of absorption. That's what occurs primarily in the small intestine. The large intestine, you have some absorption, but it's mainly water. And if everything is going well, you're going to absorb a lot of the water, but not all of it, but a lot of the water. By the time it gets over, and let me clean up this little thing. By the time it gets over to here, then it's going to be feces, and it's going to be stored in the rectum until there's going to be defecation, until that's going to be eliminated from the body. So this final part here, there's two sphincters. Sphincters are like little round muscles that kind of open like this. You have two sphincters, one voluntary and one not, that regulate the opening of the anus. When you open the voluntary one up, that is when feces will be expelled. So that's the actual defecation process. Now, in addition to the alimentary canal, there are some other what are called accessory organs. Accessory organs are those things that help or assist the process, but food does not pass through these. Like food does not pass through your salivary glands, but those glands are important because they will add juices, add saliva to the mouth to help you begin to chemically and mechanically break down that food. Also, this is the liver. This is the gallbladder right there, and this yellow thing back here is the pancreas. Those three organs are also going to contribute juices or chemicals to the process to help in the enzymatic breakdown of food. So they're going to be involved in chemical digestion. They also have other roles too. The liver produces hundreds of different chemicals. The pancreas also produces chemicals. Most notably, it produces insulin, and of course we associate insulin or lack of insulin with the type 1 diabetes. So these accessory glands are part of the digestive process, but food does not pass through them. Okay, so once again, why do we eat? We really need two things. We need energy and we need building materials. So if we're getting proper nutrition, we are getting the kinds of molecules we need. Ultimately, we can use those, we can break those down to produce this chemical molecule, ATP. In addition to energy, we also need raw materials. We have to actually put together cells and replace parts. And that's where the building materials comes in. When we talk about particularly proteins, to build a lot of the body's structure, we need amino acids. We only get amino acids, we get amino acids in part by consuming them in our foods. The potential energy in food is held in molecules like glucose. When we eat a meal, we don't think about, is there glucose in it? But if we digest everything down to its most basic components, we'll get things like glucose and fructose and amino acids and fatty acids, and we use those in proper metabolism and proper building of structure. So when we're talking in particular about fuel, the focus of this module is energy. So when we talk about fuel in particular, okay, so here's some food, orange juice or oranges. Okay, so what? When we break these down chemically in our digestive system and we produce glucose along with oxygen, and of course we know we're going to be breathing, in the mitochondria allows us to maximally produce ATP. That's really the goal, if I can make a star, that's really the goal of our food production, is to get energy and raw materials. But in the mitochondria, remember this is going to be a part of the cell, we can process ultimately the raw materials from food like glucose to produce ATP. We're also going to produce CO2. when we breathe out, we get rid of CO2. Whenever our cells are working, they actually produce CO2. So that's going to be a byproduct, a waste product, if you will, of our metabolism for food, is that when we talk about this process, cellular respiration, that is the process by which we process, well, I said process twice. It is the process by which we chemically convert all of our food molecules, the most basic ones, into ATP. And we'll spend some more time on this in class. Okay. I did want to mention this one category in particular, which are called essential nutrients. Even though this is not really talking about energy so much, I think it's appropriate to mention it here. The essential nutrients are those things that the body cannot produce by itself. In fact, we can produce some of the amino acids through our own chemical processes, but not all of them. So there are some what are called essential amino acids. The only way we get these is through our diet. Now, if you eat any meat, you're going to get all 20 of the amino acids. There's also what are called essential fatty acids. Once again, if you are eating fat in your diet, you're going to have access to all the fatty acids. Vitamins and minerals, people tend to use these interchangeably. They are slightly different. Vitamins are organic. They contain carbon, and they're required in pretty small amounts to make a lot of your enzymatic reactions work well. Minerals are also important. Let me give you an example of one. Calcium. Calcium is a mineral that you need for bone strength and muscle contractions, for example. You need to have a certain amount of calcium in your diet so that you can maintain the right levels of minerals in your body. Many illnesses are in fact caused by issues that are related to the digestive system. I won't go through these in any detail, but you're probably aware and heard of cases of people having acid reflux or gallstones or constipation. Gluten allergies are becoming more and more common. People are very sensitive to gluten, which actually is a byproduct of some of the metabolism and processing of our foods. You've heard people having ulcers, for example. These are all issues related to the malfunction of our digestive system. But let me end with just this thought. Improper diets, and we know that you've heard of all of these cases, are a significant cause of a number of health problems. Obesity is one that is on the rise, and we'll talk a little bit about this in class as well. But in addition to contributing to type 2 diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease, it will just shorten your lifespan. The human body cannot maintain all of that material, all of that mass, without some consequence later in life. Malnutrition, not a huge issue in the United States, but in other areas, if there is a lack of sufficient calories or of essential nutrients, then there can be some side effects that are going to be consequential, like there can be some improper growth, or there can be a lack of energy, or there can be some deficiencies in metabolism. And in the United States, of course, people are familiar with anorexia and bulimia, where people are voluntarily not taking in the right level of nutrients and energy, or they are taking them in and then purging, and therefore their body can't actually process that. And you see this young woman here. Obviously, this is a case that affects women more than men, but it does affect men as well too. But this is a case where someone's choosing not to really take in the right adequate level of nutrients. Anorexia can be a fatal condition because the body will begin to cannibalize itself, looking for the energy it needs to run its cell processes. But I wanted to give you this overview of nutrition and digestive system, not because I want you to know every detail of every process, but to appreciate digestion really is the process of extracting the energy we need, getting the nutrients we need so that we can maintain normal metabolism. That's it. Thanks very much.